My dad didn't just miss a birthday or a school ceremony, he missed my wedding. The one day I begged him to show up. The one day his absence echoed louder than the vows I spoke. I remember standing at the end of the aisle, my bouquet trembling, staring at the empty chair where he should have been. No text, no excuse, just silence. The kind of silence you carry for years. I told myself I was done needing him. Done, hoping he'd ever choose me. But everything changed the morning my hotel chain hit a $580 million valuation and every business network flashed my name across their screens. Suddenly, my phone lit up with the message I once would have cried for. Family dinner at 7 p.m., important discussion. Funny thing is, he didn't show up for my wedding, but I showed up for that dinner, with something he never saw coming. People think a broken family is loud. Shouting, slammed doors, chaos. Mine was quiet, uncomfortably quiet. My dad, Richard Collins, never needed to raise his voice. His absence made enough noise on its own. He moved through our Seattle house like a storm cloud dressed in a tailored suit, dark, cold, impossible to read. And somehow, everything revolved around him, even when he wasn't there. My mother, Evelyn, floated after him like a ghost wearing pearls. "Honey, your father's under a lot of pressure," she'd whisper whenever he missed another recital, another award ceremony. "Be understanding, understanding." That was the word used to excuse every wound. My older brother, Ethan, was sunshine by comparison, Dad's golden boy. Football star, straight teeth, perfect handshake. The son my father proudly introduced to his business partners, while I lingered behind with my notebooks and quiet dreams. Once, when I was 12, I gathered the courage to ask Dad why he never came to my events. He didn't even look up from his laptop. "Because, Hannah, I'm building a future for this family. You should be grateful. Grateful. For being invisible." I learned young that love in my house came with conditions, and I never seemed to meet them. So I did what forgotten daughters often do. I built a world inside my own head, one where I would someday earn a place in his line of sight. I just didn't know that to finally be seen, I'd have to become someone entirely different. People like to say your wedding day is the happiest day of your life. Mine started that way until it didn't. I remember standing in the bridal suite, veil pinned, lipstick perfect, hands trembling just enough to betray the calm I tried so hard to fake. Every few minutes, I checked my phone, not for texts from friends, not for last-minute vendor updates, but for one message. One simple line from Dad: "I'm on my way." It never came. 10 minutes before the ceremony, my screen lit up. My heart leaped, until I saw the sender. "Dad, can't make it. Important meeting." No apology. No explanation. Just another transaction-like message, as if skipping my wedding was equivalent to postponing a conference call. My breath caught, but I smiled for the bridesmaid's sake. I'd learned long ago how to hold pain quietly. When the doors opened and the music began, I walked down the aisle alone. Guests whispered, assuming maybe it was symbolic, some modern, empowered statement. Daniel, my husband, reached for my hands when I arrived at the altar. His eyes softened. "Hannah," he whispered, "you don't have to pretend you're okay." That was the worst part. I had been pretending for so long that I wasn't sure if I knew how to stop. After the reception, when the laughter faded and the lights dimmed, I sat beside Daniel on the hotel balcony overlooking the city. "He could have tried," I murmured. "One day," Daniel said gently. "He'll regret it." I wasn't so sure. In that moment, looking at the empty streets below, something inside me shifted. Not a clean break, more like a slow, silent unraveling. I finally understood. If my father couldn't show up for my wedding, he'd never show up for anything that didn't benefit him. What I didn't know was that he would show up, but only when I became worth $500 million. After the wedding, something hardened in me. Not bitterness, but resolve. If Dad's absence taught me anything, it's that waiting for approval is a slow form of self-destruction. So, I stopped waiting. I dove headfirst into the only thing that ever made sense to me: hospitality. Not the dusty old motels Dad glorified, but modern, intentional spaces. Places where people actually felt seen. My first property was a disaster. A past its prime lodge outside Portland, with mold under the wallpaper and carpets that smelled like rain-soaked socks. But it was mine. The bank manager looked at me like I was insane when I signed the papers. "You're sure about this?" he asked. A polite way of saying, "You're too young, too inexperienced, Too female. I simply nodded. I'm sure. What I didn't tell him was that failure wasn't an option. Not when every part of me needed to prove I wasn't the fragile, emotional daughter my father dismissed. So I scrubbed floors at midnight, wrote marketing plans at dawn, hired staff only when I could afford them, which wasn't often. Some nights I slept behind the front desk on a blanket because going home felt like admitting defeat. During one brutal winter storm, when the power went out across the whole property, I spent 4 hours in the freezing dark guiding guests with a flashlight and apologizing for things I had no control over. I cried exactly once, quietly, in the boiler room, before wiping my face and getting back to work. By year 3, that old lodge had a waiting list every weekend. By year 5, I expanded to 2 more locations. Intimate, minimalist, eco-focused retreats that travelers raved about online. Investors called. Interviewers requested features. Competitors tried to replicate my model. But my father? Not a word. Not a text. Not even a secondhand comment from Ethan. It was like building a skyscraper in the middle of a desert. Tall, gleaming, and completely unseen by the one person I had once hoped would look. Then came the morning everything changed. The morning my CFO stormed into my office, breathless, eyes wide. "Hannah," she said, her voice trembling. The valuation came in. I felt my pulse spike. "Well?" She grinned. 580 million. I froze, not out of shock, but because the first image in my mind, I was that empty chair at my wedding. And for the first time, I didn't feel the urge to cry. I felt powerful. What I didn't know was that miles away, my father had just read the same headline. And for the first time in years, he finally remembered he had a daughter. The morning the valuation hit the headlines, my office buzzed like a beehive. Every phone rang, every email notification pinged, every congratulatory message from partners, investors, journalists. It all blurred together in a warm, surreal haze. But the moment I'll never forget is much quieter. I was alone in my office, staring at the city skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows, when my phone buzzed again. I thought it'd be another reporter, maybe a friend. It wasn't. Dad. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. He hadn't texted me in almost 3 years. With a shaky hand, I unlocked my phone. "Dad. Family dinner at 7 p.m. Important discussion. No, congratulations. No, proud of you." Not even my name. It read like a command, like I had been summoned to a board meeting. I stared at the screen so long my eyes blurred. Daniel walked in with 2 coffees and paused when he saw my face. "What happened?" I showed him the message. His jaw tightened. "He didn't reach out when your company hit $10M. Not at $50M. Not even at $200M. But $580M? I swallowed. "He wants something." "Then don't go," Daniel said gently. But the thing is, I had to go. Not for him, for me. I needed to see what he looked like when he finally realized I no longer needed his approval. When I arrived at home, I found my CFO, Lena, waiting in the driveway. She lifted a folder. "You should see this before tonight." My stomach dropped. Inside were pages of financial reports, loan defaults, contractor disputes, foreclosure notices, all tied to my father's real estate properties. "Your dad's empire is collapsing," Lena said softly. "Badly. He's months behind on everything." I felt the ground shift beneath me. "So, that's why he texted me," I whispered. "Not to reconcile. Not to fix anything. Just to use me." Lena hesitated. "There's more. The lenders are panicking. They're willing to sell the entire debt portfolio at a fraction of its value." A slow, unfamiliar calm spread through me. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. "Buy it," I said. Lena blinked. "All of it?" "Yes," I said. "Every last dollar he owes." Because if my father wanted a family meeting, he was about to meet a very different version of his daughter. Lena didn't flinch when I told her to buy the entire debt portfolio. That's why she was my CFO. She didn't question my sanity until after the job was already done. By midnight, we sat surrounded by paperwork, laptops, signature packets, and black coffee that tasted like burnt determination. Every sheet of paper represented another piece of my father's collapsing kingdom. At 2:13 a.m., Lena looked up with tired eyes. "Hannah, once this is finalized, you'll own everything your father ever built. Are you ready for that?" I inhaled slowly. "I'm not doing this to hurt him," I said. I'm doing this because he expects me to save him without ever seeing me. She nodded. You're buying control, not revenge. By sunrise, the lenders had signed. By noon, the legal team confirmed the transfer. By late afternoon, my father's debts, his hotels, his land, his once sacred legacy were officially under my authority. I expected triumph, some electric spark of victory. Instead, I felt quiet, like the kind of quiet when a storm pulls back before it hits. That evening, I went to the closet and pulled out clothes I rarely wore: a fitted black dress, a tailored coat, heels that made my posture straighten with unintentional authority. This wasn't about looking powerful. It was about no longer shrinking. Daniel watched me fasten my earrings. You're nervous, he said gently. I didn't deny it. I'm not nervous about seeing him, I replied. I'm nervous I might still care. He stepped closer, his voice soft. Hannah, caring doesn't make you weak. Letting him keep hurting you does. I exhaled shakily. Tonight wasn't about pleasing my father. Tonight was about facing him with the truth he had spent a lifetime ignoring. On the drive over, the city lights blurred into streaks through my windshield. My mind drifted back to all the times he dismissed me. Focus on something simpler, Hannah. You're not cut out for real business. This industry is too big for you. I used to internalize every word. I used to think success would prove him wrong. But holding the documents in my bag, the contracts giving me full legal claim over his empire, I realized something. I didn't need to prove anything. I already had. When I pulled into the country club parking lot, my phone buzzed again. A text from Mom. Mom, please be kind to your father tonight. He's under stress. My chest tightened. Even now, after everything, they still expected me to shrink, to bend, to soothe the ego of the man who never once protected mine. Not tonight. I slipped my phone into my purse, locked the car, and stood taller than I ever had. Because tonight, I wasn't the girl he ignored. I wasn't the bride he abandoned. I wasn't the daughter he forgot. I was the woman who owned the future he was about to beg for. And he had no idea. The country club's private dining room was lit with warm amber lights. Too soft, too elegant for what was about to happen. I pushed the door open, and 4 faces snapped toward me. Dad, Mom, Ethan, Uncle Mark. All sitting at a perfectly set table with expensive wine they definitely couldn't afford anymore. Dad leaned back in his chair like a CEO waiting to discipline an employee. Hannah, he said, not smiling. You're late. I closed the door behind me. No, I said calmly. I arrived exactly when I meant to. Mom flinched at my tone. Dad's eyebrow twitched, but he didn't comment. Sit, he ordered. We have things to discuss. I didn't move. I know why I'm here, Ethan scoffed. Then let's skip the dramatics. Dad's business is in trouble, big trouble. And you are doing exceptionally well. Dad finished for him, his voice smooth but sharp. Your company's valuation proves you have the means to help your family. Help your family. Not I'm proud of you. Not congratulations. Just expectation. Entitlement. I stepped closer to the table. So this dinner, I said, is about money. Mom clasped her hands. Hannah, sweetheart, your father is failing, I interrupted. Financially, operationally, completely. Dad's expression darkened. We hit a rough patch, that's all. With your support, we can stabilize the properties until— You mean the properties you haven't paid contractors on for months? I asked. The loans you defaulted on? The ones already scheduled for liquidation? Ethan's eyes widened. Dad stiffened. Uncle Mark cleared his throat nervously. Dad hissed. How do you know about that? I placed my bag on an empty chair and pulled out the thick folder Lena prepared. Because, I said, sliding it across the table, I now own every dollar of your debt. Dad blinked. What did you just say? Ethan grabbed the folder, flipped it open, and his face drained of color. Dad, he whispered, this is real. She bought everything. Mom clutched her chest. Oh my God. Hannah, why would you do that? Dad slammed his palms on the table. How dare you interfere in my business? I remained steady. You summoned me here for help. This is help. This is control, Dad roared. You're trying to take what's mine. I met his fury with complete stillness. I didn't take it. You lost it. I just got there first. Ethan stood. You're unbelievable. Dad built everything we have. Everything you have, I corrected. I built mine on my own. Mom was crying now. Hannah, please. Your father is under so much pressure. He's been working so hard. I snapped. He didn't even come to my wedding. Silence slammed into the room. Dad's jaw tightened. That was unfortunate timing. No, I said sharply. Unfortunate timing is traffic. Missing your daughter's wedding is a choice. You conmated, Kenston was mean. He opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. This isn't about family. It's about money. You ignored me for years until I became valuable. Mom whispered. That's not true. Then why? I asked quietly. Did he text me only after he saw that $580M headline? Why not when I opened my first hotel? Or my second? Or at my wedding? Why now? Dad's voice cracked not with sorrow, but with anger. You owe this family. I slammed my hand on the table so hard the wine glasses rattled. I owe you nothing. They all froze. My voice was shaking but strong. I begged for your love for years. I worked myself into the ground trying to become someone you'd finally show up for. And when I succeeded on my own, you didn't congratulate me. You summoned me. Dad's eyes narrowed. So what now? You want to humiliate us? Destroy everything I built? I reached into the folder and pulled out a single envelope. I'm giving you a path out, I said. 30 days to vacate all properties. After that, my company takes full operational control. Mom sobbed. Please, Hannah, don't do this. Dad stared at me, not with fatherly sadness, but with the stunned realization that he no longer held power over me. You're no daughter of mine, he whispered. Finally, the truth spoken aloud. I straightened my posture, lifted my chin. No, I said quietly, and you made sure of that years ago. Then I picked up my purse, turned my back on all of them, and walked toward the door. Behind me, chairs scraped, someone shouted my name. My mother wailed, but nothing touched me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't leaving, wishing they'd follow me. I was leaving knowing they couldn't stop me. The night air hit me like a wave the moment I stepped outside the country club. Cool, open, free. For a second, I just stood there on the stone steps, my chest rising and falling as if I had been underwater for years and finally surfaced. Behind the doors, I could still hear muffled yelling, my father furious, my mother crying, Ethan trying to salvage whatever scraps of control they thought they still had. But none of it reached me. Daniel was waiting in the car. When he saw my face, he didn't ask what happened. He just took my hand as I slid into the passenger seat. You okay? He asked softly. I stared out the window at the glowing waterfront lights. I thought it would hurt more. Did it? I shook my head. It felt like walking out of a prison I didn't realize I'd been serving a life sentence in. The next morning, sunlight flooded my kitchen, warm and gentle, nothing like the harsh office lighting I'd grown accustomed to. The folder containing every document from last night sat on the counter. Before, I would have dreaded opening something like that. Now? It looked like freedom bound in paper. Lena called at 9 a.m. The transition is complete, she said. You're officially in control of all assets. I closed my eyes, letting that reality sink in, not the ownership, not the power, but the finality. Thank you, I whispered. She hesitated. Are you doing okay? Really okay. I surprised both of us by smiling. I think I've never been better. The next weeks were a blur of movement, but different from before, lighter, steadier. I toured each of Dad's failing properties with my team, where he saw crumbling walls, outdated decor, stained carpets. I saw possibility. We can turn this into a wellness retreat, I told the designers. Make it calm, healing, intentional. It felt symbolic, transforming the ruins of my father's empire into places built on peace, not power. One afternoon, as I stood in the lobby of what would soon become our flagship retreat, I caught sight of my reflection in the glass door. Black blazer, hair pulled back, eyes steady, without fear or doubt. A woman who outgrew the smallness she was raised in. I didn't look like the girl who once cried alone in a bridal suite, waiting for a father who never came. I didn't look like the daughter who begged for love that always came with conditions. I looked whole. My family didn't contact me, not once. But the silence didn't sting this time. It simply existed like background noise in a place I no longer lived. Ethan posted vague quotes on social media about betrayal. Mom left 2 voicemails crying but never apologizing. Dad? Nothing. His pride was too loud for words. And yet, For the first time, their reactions didn't pull me back into old wounds. They didn't define me. They didn't matter. Because I finally understood that walking away wasn't abandonment. It was self-rescue. It was giving myself what my father never gave me. Permission to choose a life not shaped by his absence, but by my presence. People assume that success heals every wound, that once your name appears on headlines beside a number like $580 million, all the emptiness disappears. But that's not how healing works. That's not how love works either. The truth is, nothing changed the day my company hit that valuation. Not really. What changed was the moment I walked out of that country club, leaving behind the voices that had shaped my childhood, the expectations that had crushed my confidence, the silence that had followed me into adulthood like a shadow. For the first time, I didn't walk away wishing things had been different. I walked away accepting that they weren't. And that acceptance felt liberating. A few weeks later, I visited one of the newly renovated properties. Soft music played in the lobby, sunlight filtered through warm oak paneling. Guests laughed quietly over tea. It felt peaceful, like a place built for someone who had spent too many years holding her breath. My breath. Daniel joined me by the window, slipping his hand into mine. "Looks like a fresh start," he said. I nodded, watching the wind sway the trees outside. "It is," I whispered. "Not for the business for me?" Because I finally understood something I had chased my entire life without realizing. Love that has to be earned is not love. Family that only appears when you're useful is not family. And approval that comes with conditions is not approval at all. I didn't need to fix my father. I didn't need to win him. I didn't need him to see me. I needed to see myself. So, if you ask me what the real turning point was, it wasn't the valuation. It wasn't the debt acquisition. It wasn't even the dinner showdown. It was the moment I realized I wasn't broken for wanting a father who could never be one. I was human. And the moment I chose myself over the people who kept choosing my usefulness, I didn't lose a family. I reclaimed my life. And that was worth more than $580 million.